Hello, guys. David Vose here again. And I don't know. I sometimes think that maybe I should start by saying something else. But it is, it's just what it is. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. And I really hope you are, because it's a beautiful day here. And I haven't been able to go out there and enjoy it. I did have to go out and feed the chickens, and they're running around all over the place. And everything's doing just wonderful here on Red Mesa Mountain here in New Mexico. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Well, we did that video yesterday, and after I did that video, I did some more research and I been asking AI a lot of questions. And I know a lot of you think, well, why do you do that? AI is a stupid idiot. It's the devil, whatever. Well, we don't know that. I mean, I believe the devil will use AI just as he used the typewriter. But like I was telling Paula the other day, I think a lot of these things, it's hard to decide in my own mind whether the universe would be better off in a million billion years if we didn't have any inventions. No typewriters, no television, no radio, no cars, no wheel. We just lived in caves. Well, I think it'd be all right. I would enjoy life like that. I could do that for 1,000 years. But just living and running and playing and watching my children grow and holding hands with Paula. But I understand that even from the biblical point of view, we're graduating, we're trying to get knowledge. And of course, the underlying knowledge that we're trying to gain is the difference between good and evil and the control or the maturity to live a life that is free and happy. Now, I suspect then, since we look at the world and we see a lot of things that are addictive, that aren't good for you, and we see that things spoil, it seems like the natural state of the universe is a little bit like this little parable I have. You go to a world where no man's ever been. There are big monsters, tigers and lions and bears, and there's also mosquitoes and ticks and bugs. And you say, well, the Lord didn't make that. Maybe he didn't. But I'm talking about the world we live in at the moment. Now, it seems like a pretty good picture of the universe, so maybe it's the truth. That in its natural state, it has good and evil in it. And so how do you get rid of all these bugs? Well, you go in, you cut down the brush, you burn the brush in the fire, the bramble, the stickers. You clear out an area for your cabin. You dig a well or you catch the water. You do things. And we just don't live in a cave. If we lived in a cave, I suppose you could do that for long periods of time, but it seems that families want a little more comfort than what just few berries and nuts grow in the wild as we know it. So what we do is we say, oh, we like these berries and nuts, and we'll bring them over and we'll make irrigation and we'll let them grow, and it'll be easier then next year to get them. And we'll be a little warmer if we make a home and have plenty of space to walk on a level floor. Even if you're living in a cave, you're going to level that thing out so you don't sleep on a rock. So there are things that we're going to have to do to make that environment better. And because the river's going through in the jungle and the wildlife has just become wild and everything's gone to seed because no man was there to till the soil. Remember, even in the Genesis account, it says after the creation, there was Yahweh come along, and he said he beheld, and lo, and there was no man to till the soil. So evidently, in the world where we till soils, there was a time when there was no man to do so. And Yahweh took Adam that was already made and put him to sleep and made a man and a woman. and then put him under law and curses and cursed the ground, then said, now go out there and till the soil, and by the sweat of your face you'll eat lachem, which is cooked, burned food. La cham. Cham is cooked. And I think la would be the definite article. It's the cooked food, processed food that you grow from the ground. Now, of course, in paradise, there was no toil. There was a orchard, a paradise, and the fruit just grew on the trees. You picked them, you ate them, that was it. There it is. And you lived without death, and there was no tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But we're entered into a world where there is good and evil in this world. Now, I don't want to get into whether the whole philosophical debate as to whether or not when we are done with this world, we go to a higher realm, back to paradise, where there is no more toil. We sit around on clouds and shoot, I don't know, grapes up the rainbow so we can get up over the other side, over the arc, and somebody on the other side of the rainbow will catch it, and we'll play games, or whether we just sit there and smell beautiful flowers that just grow out of the clouds and crystals that bloom in light beams that seem to be permeating our existence, and the smell of roses, and we just lie around and make love or something, or what do? Just drink tea and have a chat, and and then go back to the cloud and go to sleep. I don't know. I do not know. I almost think that ultimate perfection, because I don't believe in time and space where that place is. And as long as we're in time and space, which I think is for a long time, even the Bhagavad Gita, or I should say it's in the Puranas and more ancient verses, where it literally tells us we get reincarnated, and there's these ages and yugas, and this period of time where we're in this world learning through these ages of suffering is something like 3 million years or something. It's a long time. 3 trillion years, I'm sorry. So I suspect that this is where science gets this whole concept that we've been here hundreds of millions of years, and galaxies are billions and trillions of years old. I think they're getting it from the ancient wisdom. And the whole model of the atom and all of this comes from basic stuff you'll find in the Puranas, in the Vedas of the ancient scriptures. But we're not talking about outside of this existence in time and space, in physical bodies. And I actually believe ultimately that we're going to attain unto spirit and body inseparably joined, which is everlasting joy. And I think that was the purpose of life. And I think we came here to get a body. And the great prophet Joseph Smith told us this. So anyway, I guess then that means that things will improve. And from the Apostle Paul, we gathered that we go through 4 stages of evolution. And this is kind of in line with what Genesis 1 has, with fish, birds, mammals, and men. And then once we get our white robes and crowns, we go on to the higher existence of immortality. And the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 says, first of all, the Lord gives us a body. When he starts off trying to explain what is the resurrection, what sort of body shall we have? Well, he says the Lord gives us a body however it pleases him. And to start with, we get a body. It may just be a bare grain of wheat. But that grain of wheat doesn't actually come alive until first it dies. Well, that's interesting. So we got to die before we live. That's what that seems to be teaching. And it's like a grain or a seed, maybe, that falls into the earth and dies. And then it blooms. Well, okay, so there's coming a time when we're going to bloom. Right now we're dying, right? The whole 3 trillion years, I guess. It's a progress of advancing and ascending, right, back to the Father. I don't know how long it lasts, but that seems to be something that's in the scriptures. And that's fine with me, because the whole ride is wonderful. I'm not sure I want to just spend eternity with no time and space and no just, sitting on a rainbow. I like the whole adventure. But the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, somewhere like 45, 50 in there somewhere, where he's talking about this, he then goes on to say that not all flesh is the same flesh, but there is the flesh of birds, there is the flesh of fish, there is the flesh of animals and of men. Now that is 4 things. And I think that is an esoteric number to teach us that this is earthly. 4 corners of the earth and all of this. The 4 elements that they originally have, which really is all hundreds of them, but it's a esoteric number to mean the earthly things. And all of these things, birds and mammals and fish, they graduate. We go back to Genesis chapter 1. He makes the world, and he starts off and he makes fish and then birds and then mammals, then men. So here's the same progression. But then it says, but now remember, Paul's talking about this is what he's going to use to explain what is the resurrection, right? So now that part of it, do you think that applies to us? We were once fish and birds? Well, it must, because that's the resurrection of some kind, right? We go from one to the other. It's graduating stages. First fish, then birds, then mammals, then men. Then we get our crown, our white robes. Then the resurrection unto eternal life happens. And there are still 3 stages because we have eternal progression. Or at least age long, ages and ages of progression. And I don't know what happens after 3 trillion years. But the 3 graduations after we have immortality is we will be like the moon or the sun or the stars, and each star differs in star and glory. That kind of indicates that it's endless because there's endless stars, right? And each is different glory. So there's endless glories that we're going to attain after we become immortal. So that kind of explains how I feel life is supposed to be. We're supposed to have a period of time where we're mortal and we're going through this existence. And at some point, we're going to become glorified, get our crowns in our white robes, and be immortal. And then we'll never die again. And that's the kingdom of Jesus' Father that will be forever and ever. When Jesus hands back the kingdom to his Father and there's no more death. Now, that's a time that we don't know yet because we don't even know what he looks like. Because the Apostle Paul says we do not know what yet we will be, but when we see him, we will be like him because he has a body of flesh and bones. No blood, because the blood is the carnal nature that we have now. Jesus is raised up immortal. He doesn't have blood. Now, so in this life that we're in here, we don't live forever. Right? But why? Well, because evidently there's some kind of a curse on the ground. It doesn't produce. And we have this blood. Now, I'm not going to make this whole video about how we're going to get from A to B, from death to life. But I do know that the Bible says that if we have faith in Lord Jesus, he's going to bring his kingdom. It's going to be an enlightenment. And we're going to advance and get our wings. And I also know that when Jesus comes, we'll all be changed in a twinkling of an eye, which doesn't mean a twinkling of an eye like it says, but with the twinkle of the light ray that comes over the horizon, when dawn happens, we know it's day. And that twinkles that light ray in your eye, and it's a split second when you see that light ray of dawn, the dawn's early light. And that is the dawn of the new day of immortality and, everlasting light. We'll all be changed. Will it happen instantaneously? I'm not really sure. But I do know that there is something that's instant, and that is the whole world is changed. Does it mean we're already graduated to the highest point? No, but we'll change from death to life. Nothing will die after that. But perhaps people who were old at that time, when that change happens, will just automatically then at that point begin to get younger. And people who are young will grow to maturity and no more because life will be right and perfect. and we will live forever. But what is it that makes us live forever? Will it not be using these substances and the elements that we have available and using them properly? Because we're no longer under this law, which is the curse. And that seems to be what ruined the whole thing in the first place. Adam and Eve had paradise. They could live forever. They fell by eating from the knowledge of good and evil, duality, good and evil. A test, a trial to make them better, to graduate. And they knew they were naked. They lost their immortal bodies of light. And now they were descended down into this place where they received bodies of skin. So something happened. Bodies of light, mortal fleshly bodies. What could it have been? Well, simply the mind, as we've said so many times in all of our videos, is what makes everything exist. And we already have the same mind that was in Christ, right? If you have the mind that was in Christ, you're going to live forevermore. And that mind that was in Christ is in you. And we were all one in Christ from the founding of the world. So the only thing that's ever happened in the universe, because we were immortal then, there was no creation then. We were the Elohim, and we made the world in our image, or for our form to inhabit by spirit. We know this from various places, not only because the Elohim was before the creation, and Jesus said, we are the Elohim, but also because we know that there was a manifestation of our divine mind that made this perfect world with fruit to eat, and we had some kind of light bodies, evidently. What does that mean? Well, it means that we manifested bodies, more subtle nature, not as weighty and material as we have now. No blood, no carnal nature, but yet we still manifested a paradise with fruit to eat. And the only thing that seemed to change that was this curse. And what is the curse? The curse is the law. Yahweh made the curse and made us into the dust. And he accused them of sin. And this is that lower nature that we developed. And it's going to be there first, that lower nature, because it's that nature that we have that is without knowledge, right? We haven't got the knowledge yet. We haven't become mature. So we're dealing with ignorance, and we're in the land of darkness. And there's always darkness before day. So you have the night and then the morning. That's why in Genesis chapter 1, you always have an evening and then a morning, right? First there was an evening and then there was a morning. So it starts off dark and it somehow ends up light. But why would it be half and half? Because wherever you're at in the universe, everything behind you is darkness, because you didn't learn what you know now. Then you didn't know. But now, from the present moment into the future, there's going to be awakening. There's going to be knowledge. So everything in the past is darkness and everything in the future is light. And so the whole universe is broken up in darkness and light, the past and the future. And the infinite past evidently either goes back to a place where we fell all of a sudden one day from this eternal place where there was no time and space, or this eternal time and space is always there because it is eternal. And we have a higher state where we're in that place, and we descend into this and we spend time here and we go back. But either way, the Bible's clear by saying that we have to take what we have and then develop that into something. So we end up with death, but through the death we get life. We end up with darkness, but through darkness we attain to light. Okay, the night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us go forward as children of the day. No more in all of this ignorance and drunken confusion and rioting and so forth that the Apostle Paul describes. This lustful carnal nature like animals killing one another. But we awake, what? To that Christ consciousness, to the Christ in you, the hope of glory. Why would it be the hope of glory? Because we're hoping for glory, right? And what is it? Well, that's the Christ that is in us, because his seed remains in us, because we we were all his children from the beginning. So that seed, the seed of that divine nature, is in us. It remains in us. And whenever we are in love, we're in deity and in Christ. And the seed is always there with us. But sometimes we follow after the fleshly nature, which is this delusion, this ignorance, the darkness. One day we'll get into the light. So when we get into the light, what is it going to be? Boom, we're not going to be physical beings anymore? No. Is it going to be anything different than it is now? I don't know yet. Who knows, right? But I think that all we got to do is take the elements that we already have, which is what? Nothing, because it's all mind. So we just take the same mind that we got, only we have learned and we've grown and we've matured. We got the mind that was in Christ, and boom, now something happens in the world where everybody awakens. There is a final harvest, which is the end of the ages, and the angels are the reapers. And we've already said that angels are your higher self. And so we're not going to go into all this and explain it, but the point is that there will come a time, a conclusion, or a summation of the ages. And that will be the last days, and it will be the judgment. And it will be the time for, after all these thousands of years, where we now, as a people, as a human family, we now graduate. All right? I think the way the apostles describe it, and Jesus, it's going to happen kind of suddenly, because Jesus said, when will these things be? Restoring the kingdom. And he says, it's not given to you to know the times and the seasons, but keep on the watch and wait. And when these things happen, you'll know. So it's going to happen. There'll be a point when this happens, contrary to what Josh says on the Sons of God Ministries and others who don't believe that the Lord is coming, and they believe in preterism and they think that it's all spiritual. There is going to be a physical. We're going to go back to the garden where there were trees and fruit. And the only difference between that day in the first chapter and the day in the second chapter, when Yahweh cursed us, is that curse, and that's the law, and the law is done away in Christ. But there will come a time when everyone, every eye will see, every tongue will confess, and then the heavens and the earth that are now will pass away, and we'll have a new heavens and a new earth. But I don't believe they're going to be literally a new heavens and a new earth, because I think the heavens and the earth is manifested from mind. The divine mind will manifest the good new earth. And that will be because of an awakening, because of this enlightenment, which is this getting of the white robe through his grace, and knowledge that will be increased, Daniel says, in the latter days, which is evidently what we have. And the knowledge then is something that probably indicates knowing good from evil, primarily, and maturity in Christ and love. However, does it not include, say, typewriters and wheels? Will we be forbidden to have cars and wheels and television and radio? I was asking this question. I was talking to Paula about it too, that, if the world goes into a perfect new world where paradise is everywhere, will we want cars? I don't know. It's a very philosophical question. Do we want typewriters and radio? Will we have AI? I mean, is AI evil in itself, or is it the one who runs it, the beast that takes control of it? Well, if we have the capability to make a computer, I don't know if we'll be forbidden from doing it. Our hearts will be different then, and we'll use it differently. But certainly there will be a great escalation of knowledge after we attain to a perfect state and have AI. But I don't know. The only thing I always think about is that, well, would I want to live in a new, beautiful paradise world and just absolutely, completely, and totally forget all these songs? The devil's been running the world, and there's all these evil songs, right? Propaganda. But at the same time, there were a lot of songs that are dear to my heart. If I don't ever get to remember John Denver, I could remember John Denver and sing his songs, and Jim Croce and Glenn Campbell and all this, songs I love, the Eagles and America and Bread and all that. But eventually I'll forget that. If we don't, I guess I could make a guitar and play it myself. But would that be wrong? Well, that's technology guitars, right? No, I don't think so. I think we will have guitars, and I think then perhaps we'll advance that to higher and higher technologies. Well, we've already attained to this technology, which in a sense may be the very thing that enlightens us. Because now the whole world's got this knowledge and we're talking back and forth, and maybe people are awakening and we're actually going to overcome death. Maybe the Christ will actually appear in us, right? First, the Christ nature. And as we awaken, we'll begin to see clearly, and Jesus himself will be here. And all of the ones that were incarnated in the past, we'll all find ourselves here. And so we will come in a literal sense, but we will arrive in an enlightenment that is going to be permanent, where we're mature adults and we establish the kingdom and we say no more laws and curses and vengeance. We've learned from that. So I don't know if I'd want to live in a world where there weren't any 1957 Chevys or 69 Barracudas. Or, I know cars are dangerous and all of that, and they pollute the earth, but, we could probably make them so they don't pollute. Or maybe the pollution thing's a big lie, but I think these beautiful cars are something that, surely there'll at least be museums where we can go see these things, right? And somewhere where we could play the songs and the movies. Could you go through life without watching Star Trek or Star Wars or Raiders of the Lost Ark or all your favorite shows? In the future, we might want to go back and visit those times. Although we'll probably even make more brilliant and captivating songs in the future, and movies and plays and books, and we'll learn more knowledge and find out more things. Maybe the knowledge is just endless, but at that point, we'll have at least learned maturity and goodness. But then we'll be able to pursue other things for on into infinity. I don't know. I don't think we'll just be stagnant like cavemen forever. That's my guess. It would seem very sad if in the new world, when everything is perfect, I will never have access to my old videos where we could go back and watch me trekking through the canyons and climbing cliffs back before the world was good, back in the old days. Oh, look at this. I don't know. Will we discard a lot of the violent, evil stuff and burn them and get rid of it, so that no one ever has access to the evil stuff that we've had in this world? Maybe. I don't know how that works. But I will tell you this. It seems to me that the only thing we need is the right mind to manifest this world perfectly, so that we start loving the animals, they love us back, and then there's no more death. And so love then is probably the key, along with wisdom. You get knowledge until you get wisdom. If we have wisdom, then what? Well, then we're going to know how to unlock the secrets of these phytochemicals and plants and living things and herbs and minerals and all of this knowledge until we understand why we were dying. It's because of sin, because of a wrong attitude. It was because we were being deceived by this lower carnal nature. And that's what I believe. So once we awaken and we start doing things properly, eating properly, I believe that we could live forever. Now, yesterday we were talking about minerals and salt and all of this. And I left it at the end like, well, okay, we're going to have to go into this deeper to find out whether or not we could just drink, should we put salt in our water, sea salt, and does that extend life? And well, I've learned a lot over the last few hours, and I want to share with you what I learned and what I asked AI. And you got to stay tuned for this. I know it may be boring a little bit to read what I'm doing back and forth with AI, but I think that if you get to the end of this, and we're about halfway through now, I think if you get to the end of this, it's going to blow your mind what I found out. And I think I may have convinced AI that I'm right. They tried real hard to say, no, it's impossible to live forever. And no, we shouldn't put salt in our water. And no, we shouldn't, there's, no point in trying to eat right because everybody's going to die, and that's kind of the way they presented it. But here's my conversation with AI, and you will love the ending of this, so watch till the end. I had some conversation with AI at different various times yesterday and today, but I'm just going to start here with where I kind of get into the real crux of the matter. And we don't have that much time anyway, but this is going to blow your mind, the things that I was asking AI and the things we came up with together. So I asked him, could water with higher concentrations of sodium chloride also be higher in other beneficial minerals that offset the sodium chloride and also have less bad bacteria? Because they're constantly telling me that you don't want to take too much sodium and chloride. You don't want to get too much, and they're like cautious. Oh, don't do that. They don't like the idea of putting more salt. In fact, the FDA or the World Council of Health Organizations or whoever they are have been saying for years, don't take salt or eat salt or put salt on your food. You're getting too much. And so, I will say after going through this, that they are sincere in some of what they're saying. But it's illogical, and I don't see how they could be so illogical. Because what they're saying is if you're going to eat like crap, the food you get at the store, there's already too much salt. But the problem is it's not sea salt. Most of the stuff you get at the store is just regular sodium chloride, and it's processed, and it's bleached, and all of this, and chemicals. And so, yeah, you wouldn't want too much of that at all, and none of it, right? And not only that, but all the foods got all these other chemicals that are substitutes for salt and chemicals that make you addicted. And so it's not so much that we're getting too much salt, but we're really getting too many chemicals, in my opinion. But if it was real sea salt, you could still get too much. But I don't think that's the main problem. But here's what they say. Yes, water with higher concentrations of sodium chloride is often higher in other beneficial minerals and tends to have less bad bacteria. Well, that's interesting. They admit that. It is a detoxing. I've seen them admit it over and over again. Definitely, sodium chloride gets rid of. In fact, we'll see here in a little bit where they explain how the kidneys use sodium, and chloride, both, to get rid of disease. That's how the body gets rid of disease. And we'll read that here in a little bit. But it says, though, there are important nuances to both points. Higher beneficial minerals, water with high sodium chloride levels typically flows through geological formations that are also rich in other minerals. This water is a natural source of essential electrolytes: calcium, magnesium, potassium, bicarbonates. Some studies suggest that mineral water rich in these components, especially magnesium and calcium, may help lower blood pressure, potentially offsetting some of the negative effects of the sodium content. Yeah, potassium. If you get more potassium than you're normally getting, like eating lots of plants, which have a lot of potassium, because all the plants have a lot of potassium, and the plants don't have almost any sodium. There's a little bit of sodium in plants, but not very much at all. But plants have more sodium, so maybe if you salt your food, it makes a balance. But anyway, less bad bacteria. High salt concentration does inhibit the growth of many common harmful bacteria due to osmosis. The high salt concentration draws the water out of the bacterial cells, dehydrating and killing them, which is why salt has long been used as a food preservative. And let's go down here. I say, could it be that the reason there are salt, brine, soda springs, and wells near oceans, which tend to have more salt, that are higher in sodium chloride, but not usually the rivers, lakes, and streams? Could it be that it's because the body can benefit temporarily from high sodium and chloride to detox and reduce inflammation and then an infection once a month or so? I just threw that out there. And I'm thinking, because, you hear about these stories where goats or certain animals know where these pits are, like these hot springs or mud springs, where the mud is got a lot of minerals in it. And they go and they waller in this mud hole and they sink up to their neck and just lay in it when they're sick, and it will pull out all the toxins. And I'm thinking, okay, so maybe that's what these soda springs and these, sodium and carbonates and all these things in the water, maybe that's why they're not everywhere, because some waters like rivers and streams and most springs they have minerals, but they're not so full of sodium chloride. And maybe then most of the time we're supposed to drink regular water, but when we're feeling down or whatever, we're supposed to drink sodium chloride, maybe that, or bathe in it, right? People have baths in Epsom salts, which is like, I think, magnesium, but it's supposed to detox and pull poisons from you. So there's definitely something there. So they say the location of salt, brine, and soda springs is due to geology, not evolutionary mechanism tied to the body's monthly need for detoxification. Well, I get it, but there's also things in nature that you could take when you get sick that will reduce inflammation and stuff. So, hey, I'm just thinking outside the box here. They don't need to mock me now. Well, I guess I mock them, so it's fair. The high sodium chloride in these sources is a natural geological phenomenon, while the body has developed mechanisms to excrete excess salt daily, not periodically. All right, that's a good point. But what if you get backed up? Your body's supposed to do that, but what if your liver's not working right? Maybe you need to detox some way. Enemas are certainly good to get a person back to health if they're very sick. So perhaps we do need something like herbs and medicine, because the Bible says that the leaves of the trees were for the healing of the nations. So geological resources for saline springs. The difference in salinity between various water sources is primarily due to the rock formations the water flows through. Deep wells and brine springs. Water in deep wells or brine springs has typically traveled through ancient underground salt deposits. Okay, we know how they got there. Proximity to oceans, coastal areas, high salt concentration can be a result of windblown sea spray. Rivers, lakes, and streams, surface water. Okay, they're just going over some things about stuff we don't need to really know about right now. But let's get into whether the body can detoxify and get rid of inflammation. The idea that the body benefits from periodic high salt detox is not supported by scientific evidence. Detoxification is an ongoing. The human body has sophisticated and efficient natural detoxification systems. The liver and the kidneys. Yeah, but like I said, what if the liver and the kidneys are getting overwhelmed and you need something to kind of, help them a little bit? Because if the kidneys themselves produce sodium and chloride to go through the bloodstream and get rid of disease, could we benefit from doing it? Hey, doctors do that. They give you medicine. What, they forgot about medicine? So anyway, the liver, the kidneys that work continuously to filter waste and maintain electrolyte balance daily. These systems don't require periodic flushing. Well, they shouldn't require it. We eat right. But if we're bad boys and girls and we eat wrong and they get backed up and they get weak, then what? I don't know. They don't answer that. With high concentrations of salt water, in fact, this can strain them. They say it can strain them. Well, it means that they're working. That could strain them. But if they're working, wouldn't that be detoxifying? And it might strain them a little bit, but yet you'd still be detoxifying? I don't know. High salt and inflammation. Far from reducing inflammation, consuming excessive salt is linked to increase in inflammation and an exacerbation of inflammatory and autoimmune conditions. Okay. I'm kind of trusting what they're saying unless I see something that they're not noticing or that they might be accentuating one side and I'm like, okay, what about this? And I ask them these questions. So this is generally what they're saying is if you do get too much salt, then it could be not so good for your liver. So some people who are out there telling people to put all the sea salt in their water and drink it every day, they need to be careful because we got to make sure we know what we're doing here. So let's continue to see if we can figure this out. External versus internal use. While salt water is useful for external applications like gargling for a sore throat or mouth rinses due to the antibacterial properties, So it does have antibacterial properties. Ingesting large amounts of it for detox can be harmful. And I'm not really saying we should ingest large amounts. I'm only advocating the idea that if we're not drinking water at all, or water that has minerals, we're just getting distilled or purified water, that we're not getting the minerals that we need. And perhaps that's why so many people are sick, you see. So they say, therefore, the presence of various water sources with different mineral compositions is a result of natural geology. Yes, it is. But I think the Lord provides, the universe has, it's not coincidence. The divine love of the universe provides everything we need. And since there are places where we can go where there's a lot of minerals, I think the animals know best, right? Instinctively, they go and lie in these springs and soak in it. So maybe that's how we should do it. I said if you took 5,000 milligrams of sea salt for one day, or maybe several, not permanently, would this do anything for detoxification or reducing infection? Because you see, they're only recommended that you don't go over about 2,300 or something per day. And I'm saying, okay, what if you doubled that? Wouldn't kill you, but would it be all right to do that for a day or two, maybe to detox? And they say consuming a high amount of salt, such as 5,000 milligrams of sea salt in one day or over several days, double the recommended daily intake of 2,300 milligrams of sodium, would not provide internal detoxification benefits and might actually impair your body's ability to fight off certain infections. Detoxification. There is no scientific evidence that a high intake of salt water or a salt flush detoxifies the body or removes toxins or waste buildup beyond causing forced, urgent bowel movements. Well, that might detox you, having bowel movements, Okay, if you're all plugged up, that's why people take magnesium. It's a laxative. So, I don't know if they're saying, or what they're saying is absolute. I get what they're saying, but at the same time, I do know of situations where it is good to take laxative. I know that it is good sometimes to get your bowels moving if you can't get them moving. So that might be part of the whole detox movement because your liver's kicking in right now. So yeah, it might be strain on your liver, or your kidneys to give it that much salt. I don't know. A little bit once in a while might not hurt it, but if it gets the liver flushed and it opens up and you got a bowel movement, then wouldn't that be detoxing the liver rather than hurting the liver? Just saying. That's my thoughts. I don't know, guys. So they say the liver and the kidneys are highly efficient natural filters. Yeah, when they're working properly. That continuously detoxify the body. Ingesting excess salt for this purpose can lead to dehydration. Well, then drink some more water. Flush it. Keep drinking water. But get those minerals in the water, right? So you're not going to be depleted of water and minerals, but you're just detoxing the hard metals and infection out of your liver and kidneys. That sounds rational to me. But this is what they're saying, and I take it seriously what AI is saying, because this is the consensus of all the people in the world who are smart. It can cause nausea and vomiting. Well, of course it can. You ever take a whole spoonful of salt, swallow it, you'll throw up. So yeah, but hey, if I down a whole bottle of whiskey, I might get sick and get a headache as well. Too much of anything is not a good thing, right? So it also gives temporary spikes of blood pressure. Reducing infection. Current scientific research, it always says stuff like that, current. Like, they might be wrong, but currently, they say that high salt diet can actually have a negative impact on the body's immune system. Okay, and immune responses to certain bacterial infections. What bothers me about some of the things they say is they make it sound so scary. Oh, don't ever take salt, right? Recommending everybody stop taking salt, don't eat eggs, no butter, no fat. A lot of this stuff doesn't sound right. Maybe on a consistent basis, you get too much salt, that wouldn't be good. However, why don't they constantly come out and say, don't eat the food at the store, it's got glyphosate? Why don't they come out and say, and they'll readily tell you, oh, don't worry about the glyphosate. The FDA has approved it. It's all right. Eat it up. Yay. But if you ask them, should I put a little sea salt in my water? I didn't say, should I put too much? They could just say, yeah, you should do that, but here's the amount you should take. And here's what you need to do. But no, they just say, don't do it. It just seems odd to me. Impaired immune cells and worse outcome. Okay, that's what they're saying. I'm taking it seriously. But I'm going to ask some more questions to see if we can get down to some basic, real, enlightening ideas that maybe they haven't thought about, or possibilities. So I go down here and I ask, if the 100 elements contain all 6,000 or 10,000 minerals, and all substances like plants, carbs, proteins, and fats are made up of these 6,000 or more minerals, can the body synthesize proteins and fats and carbs from just minerals? Now, I knew that the body couldn't do that. I was pretty sure. But I thought, I wonder if, you know how you hear about people that are breatharians or just, something like that, where they claim you really don't need to eat. You can just soak in the sunlight, and maybe the body has some secret mechanism where we could live long periods of time without eating hardly anything. Maybe just mineral water, because everything in that mineral water is the building blocks to everything in your body and life. So I thought, okay, it's worth a shot. I just want to ask this question because I've never really asked it. I've wondered about things like this. And they say no. Well, of course they would. No, the human body cannot, in bold letters, cannot synthesize carbohydrates, proteins, and fats from just minerals. Minerals are essential micronutrients needed in small amounts, but they serve as structural components like in bones or cofactors for enzymes, but not as the primary building blocks for the large organic molecules. The central issue is the lack of specific elements and the biological machinery required for synthesis. We don't have the machinery. So they go on to talk about micronutrients are organic substances, meaning they contain both carbon, hydrogen atoms, often bonded to oxygen and nitrogen. Okay, you would get all those elements in your food if you drank water with minerals. The point they're trying to make is to synthesize that then into bigger compounds and proteins and carbs and so forth. The body doesn't have that ability. So carbohydrates and fats are made of carbon C, hydrogen H, and oxygen O, and protein contains CHO and crucial nitrogen. Minerals are inorganic elements like sodium, chloride, calcium, magnesium, potassium, etc. The body cannot create organic matter from inorganic minerals alone. Now, the role of plants and the human body. Plants are capable of synthesizing organic molecules and simple or inorganic raw materials. Photosynthesis, plants use sunlight to combine carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil to produce glucose, a simple carbohydrate. So plants do that. I know your body does some of that, right? It can synthesize certain things, B vitamins in the gut, fermentation. Since people never lay out in the sun all day, I wonder just to what extent we could do that more than what we're doing it now. Perhaps we do synthesize some things that we need that we're not synthesizing, and it's causing us to age, and this hasn't even been found out by these scientists yet. That's just what I'm positing. And then further synthesis, they then use glucose as a building block and absorb minerals like nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur from the soil to synthesize all the necessary fats and proteins. The human body, in contrast, is a consumer. It must obtain complex pre-made organic molecules from the diet. Essential nutrients, the body cannot produce certain essential amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, or essential fatty acids, the building blocks of fats, on its own, so they must be consumed through food. Lack of machinery. The humans lack the metabolic pathways to perform the initial carbon fixation step like plants. to convert fat into protein because fats lack the required nitrogen. Therefore, you need to eat carbohydrates, fats, and proteins for their building blocks to sustain life. Your body cannot build them from just water, air, and minerals. All right, that's what I thought, but good to know, right? So I say, is it more efficient to use meat or plants to build body, muscle, fatty tissue, and bone? And they say it is more efficient to use a combination of both meat and plants to build body, muscle, fatty tissue, and bone. Neither source alone provides all the necessary nutrients in the most optimal ratios for human health. Now, the one thing I will tell you before we go on here is they do say in the end that your body could survive on just plants. It can synthesize the things that you need, and you can live on plants. You don't have to have meat. But if you only eat meat, that's not good enough because you couldn't get some of the things that you would get in plants that you need just eating meat. That's what I gathered from it. So basically, you could be a vegetarian and not eat any meat, and you could synthesize what you need to survive if you ate a good, healthy diet of vegetables and nuts and berries and things. I suppose eggs and butter and cheese and things. But if you just ate meat, guys, the consensus is by the great scientists of our day, and from apparently experience that people have went down that road. I mean, look at Jordan Peterson, just ate meat, and now he's almost dead, I guess, is in the hospital or something, and I'm not sure what his current situation is, and I hope and pray for his speedy recovery. But it could be, and if you take a look at someone like Santos Bonacci that was just eating, he wouldn't eat any eggs and milk, and I guess, or something. And, he looked really bad, and it didn't look like he was doing well. So let's remember that Jordan Peterson was very, very thin, and there are a lot of complications with just eating just meat. So building muscle tissue, meat is generally more efficient for building, but it just says generally more efficient. It's not saying you couldn't do it with plants than plants due to its nutrient composition. Protein quality, it's a complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. Well, you can get that with a variety of vegetables, and they explain that. Bioavailability, nutrients in meat such as vitamin B12, iron, hemiiron, zinc are often more easily absorbed by the body than those found in plants. So what we gather there is that plants is enough. You could do it with plants. But it may be more bioavailable from meat. Well, one thing I noticed right off the bat is they talk about vitamin B12. And a lot of people talk about that with vegetarians. They don't get vitamin B12 and certain things. What they don't tell you is that your body does synthesize in your gut all these things they claim you can't get from plants. You don't get B12 from plants, but you do get it from the synthesis in your gut. That's why when you eat meat, you get B12, because the animals can synthesize it, just like you, being an animal, can synthesize it. So we can get these things like B12, all the B vitamins, and certain things they say you can't get by eating meat. You can get, you don't need to eat meat. And that's a fact. Now, plants as complement, plant protein. See, they say you should eat meat and then plants as a complement. But it's kind of backwards. I think you should eat plants, and if you did eat meat, it should be a complement to the plants. And maybe that's why Jesus told us to eat fish. But definitely eggs and cheese and milk and honey and things that come from animals are important. And the Bible tells us to eat honey and milk. And Jesus said eggs are perfect food. And he also gave us fish. So I think that's enough for me. I'm going to trust the Lord Jesus. But it does say that legumes, grains, nuts, seeds are typically incomplete on their own and must be combined or eaten throughout the day to get all the essential amino acids. Combined, yeah. One nut variety is not going to be enough. It's incomplete. But you eat a variety of vegetables and fruits, and that is complete. You do get the essential amino acids that way. But plants, however, offer essential nutrients like fiber. So you can't go through life without fiber, guys. Because fiber, even if you don't need it to go to the bathroom, which you kind of do, Some people get by, but it ain't easy going to the bathroom when you only eat meat. You might get to a place where you could process it, but I don't know. But fiber certainly helps that process. But not only that, the fiber is where the fiber ferments and creates these vital nutrients in your gut, bacteria and things that you need to be healthy. So you do need plant fibers. You can't just eat meat, guys. And if you eat meat, I think you should just eat fish or birds and not mammals, in the animals that were created on the 6th day with humans, all the mammals. So building fatty tissue, it says that both meat and plants provide necessary fats, but the type of fat is what matters most for health. Meat fats provide saturated and monosaturated fats, while necessary for energy and hormone production. Excessive intake of saturated fat could be linked to health issues. I'm not so sure about that. I do believe we need saturated fats, and you can get saturated fats in plants. But their leaning towards meat isn't really that good, because if you eat it and you get the fat from your meat, it's too much saturated fat. So they're saying that plant fats are better, provide healthier polyunsaturated fats, omega-3 and omega-6. So the efficiency that the body is highly efficient at converting both dietary fat and excessive carbohydrates or protein into body fat for energy storage. Building bone tissue, plants are vital and highly efficient source of a broad spectrum of minerals required for building and maintaining strong bones, while meat provides key structural components. The plant's role: the plants provide essential minerals, calcium, leafy greens, fortified foods, magnesium, potassium, vitamin K, vitamin C, and all of these are crucial for the bone density and strength. Meat's role: there's only two lines. Meat provides protein, which is the fundamental matrix of bone, and phosphorus. All right, but the plants provide it too. So conclusion, yeah, we get that. So I say, does the body use salt by the kidney to remove infection? Now, look at this. First, they say, no, the body does not use salt via the kidney to remove infection. Ha ha, you're an idiot, Dave. In fact, a high salt diet may make the body less effective. Okay, so they go through this whole thing and try to prove that I'm wrong. But then I ask them a different question, because I see they're not getting the point, right? And I say, wait a minute. I know the body uses peroxide to remove infections. Does it make salt too as a way to disinfect? I already knew it does, but I was just trying to get them to express it and put it in their words so that I could share it with you. But it took a while to get them to admit it, which is crazy. And they say yes. So before they said no, and now they're saying yes, so you got to ask them right. The body's immune system effectively creates a form of bleach using the chloride from salt, sodium chloride, to disinfect and kill invading pathogens. So there's the chloride that it uses, which is part of table salt. And the process is the white blood cells, the common type of white blood cell called neutrophils, are the body's first line of defense against any bacterial infection. They engulf and invade bacteria into a compartment called a phagosome. The hydrogen peroxide production, as you mentioned, the immune cells produce hydrogen peroxide within this compartment as part of the toxic cocktail of chemicals designed to kill the invaders. The role of chloride and MPO. Neutrophils contain a powerful enzyme called myeloperoxidase, MPO. The MPO enzyme uses the hydrogen peroxide and the chloride ions present in the body's fluids derived from the salt you eat to catalyze a reaction that produces hypochlorous acid. The hypochlorous acid is the active germ-killing ingredient in household chlorine bleach. This potent microbicide chemically burns and destroys the bacteria trapped within the immune cell. Therefore, adequate chloride intake from the diet is essential for the robust innate immune response. If the body has an inadequate supply of chloride, such as a certain channel disorders like cystic fibrosis, host defense against infection is compromised because the immune cells cannot produce enough of this powerful disinfectant. So I said, if the body had one element missing, say we had 90 elements, but completely lacked the other 10 or so, would you be healthy, or would this stop the flow of energy of life force? And they say, if the body completely lacked even one of the approximately 25 elements considered essential for human life, health would be impossible, and life itself would cease to exist. The absence of essential elements would stop the flow of energy and the chemical reactions necessary to sustain life. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because this is what I've been trying to say, that minerals are in a chain. Now, they contradict that and they say it's not a chain, but I query them further and they admit it is like a chain from the higher elements to the lower, and that's what makes up a cell, and we'll get to that. The consequences of one missing or an essential element. The human body relies on a complex interplay of chemical elements to function. A total of about 25 elements are required, some in bulk and others in trace amounts. If any of these were entirely absent, immediate death. For major elements, 4 elements, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. That makes up 96% of the body's mass. Well, there you go. If you want to know how much your body is made up of air, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, it's 96%. So that's why you got to add water to the salt. And it's fundamental to all organic molecules, water, DNA, proteins, fats, carbohydrates. Missing any of these would be instantly fatal. For example, without iron, oxygen transport via hemoglobin would stop, leading to death within seconds. Cessation of biological processes. Each essential element plays a specific vital role. Phosphorus is critical for the body's energy currency molecule, ATP. Without it, all cellular energy processes would cease. Calcium is required for nerve transmission. Sodium and potassium are essential for nerve impulses and maintaining fluid balance. Iodine is necessary for thyroid hormones and regulate growth. Cobalt is central component of vitamin B12, crucial for the red blood cell formation. Inability to function. The body functions as a result of millions of chemical reactions involving compounds of all these elements. Without even one essential element, these interconnected systems would break down. Therefore, the presence of these essential elements is a prerequisite for what we understand as the flow of energy or life force. The body cannot sustain life by simply having a large number of non-essential elements if a key required element is missing. So I said, does each cell have a chain of the elements? And if a cell dies, it is because it lacks one or more elements. And they say no, but I'll get them to admit that that's a yes. But so far, they like to say no first. No, a cell does not have a simple chain of elements. So I say so. Though not a chain of elements, but a solution, like or something, but one missing element will cause cell death. Yes, that is correct. While the cell is more like a highly complex chemical factory or a solution of intricate molecular machinery rather than a physical chain of elements, the absence of just one essential element will ultimately lead to cell death. Okay. We could read all that, but it's kind of the same thing they've been saying. I want to get to this point here. Doesn't the elements or minerals arrange themselves by natural gravity? And I should not have put that in there because that blows their mind, because, they say that gravity is something we have on Earth, but the cells don't work with gravity. They work with electric charge, magnetism. And I knew that, but I'm using the word gravity just in the sense of things that attract one another. But they pounce on that, or change into a chain-like structure, So the elements or minerals arrange themselves by a natural gravity or a magnetism. And they naturally put themselves into a chain-like structure. And they say, well, the elements and minerals in the body do not arrange themselves into a simple chain-like structure based on natural gravity. See, they want you to think it doesn't arrange into a simple chain-like structure. But what they're really saying is it doesn't do it based on natural gravity, because they're saying that's a different force. It's magnetism and not gravity. All right. We'll get to the thing I'm trying to get to here in a second. Yes, but the 3D structure, isn't it formed by heavier molecules like uranium or metals having more electrons, and lighter molecules like sodium or even hydrogen and oxygen with less electrons or charge to be at the top and the heavier elements at the bottom in a chain? But of course, with all the electrons, it is more of a 3D structure. That is an interesting way to visualize the arrangement. But the structure of biological molecules like DNA, proteins, etc., is not determined by gravity. Again, they can't get over this frickin' word gravity once you get it into their head. And they're talking about gravity. Separating heavier elements to the bottom and lighter ones to the top. This structure is determined by chemical affinity and electrical charge, not weight or position relative to gravity. I've already explained to them that I know that, but I don't know why they harp on that. My point is that for whatever this force is, they're arranged in an exact chain. You can't alter that chain. I said, when I said gravity, I didn't mean Earth's gravity. I meant electrical charge. So this arranges the elements based on charge, and each element takes its place based on the amount of charge or electrons in a 3D structure. So you got to be very careful or they're going to keep on and on. They say, yes, that is a much more accurate description. Okay. The elements arrange themselves into highly specific 3D structures based entirely on their electrical charge and the way their electrons interact. So that would be a chain, because one is attracted to one and the next one's attracted to the next one. You go from air all the way to the solids. So I say, so then, we need the minerals in exact proportion that they are in nature. Not too much sodium or chloride, or too much anything, or too little. So if you get the correct amount of sodium or chloride or oxygen, but lack enough magnesium or calcium, maybe due to diet insufficiency or too much man-made chemicals that destroy one or more particular elements, this is the primary reason for disease. Now, guys, this is a very important question. This is so important. Please, everyone listen up. I told you to wait to the end of this video. Because what I'm asking is, what is disease? How do we live forever? We all know we need a balanced diet, but something that no one ever tells you is that if you have one mineral missing from your body, you're going to die. You have to have all of them. And therefore, wouldn't it be helpful if you got a balanced protein, a balanced fat, and a balanced carb, as well as a balanced mineral in your diet, obviously, and avoid anything that would, a chemical or anything that would hijack that or destroy any of those minerals or proteins or anything. So chemicals are toxic. And they say that is an accurate summary of how nutrition and biochemistry lead to health or disease. Guys, you see what's going on here? We have just found the reason we die. You've got to have all of the elements in perfect harmony, balanced to live. And if you don't have that, you're going to die. The core principle of nutrition is that the body requires all essential minerals in specific balanced proportions derived from natural sources to maintain proper function. Boom! Period. The importance of correct proportions. The body is a system of delicate balances Having an exact amount of one element while lacking another can disrupt the vital process. Balance is the key, not just about the minimum requirement, but about balance. Very important. Just like, for instance, high sodium intake is less harmful when paired with high potassium intake. So if you're partaking of sea salt, which has all of the minerals in proportion, then you're getting a balance. So if you're just taking table salt that's got just sodium and chloride, you're imbalancing your system. And so all this talk about, we've learned from rats that sodium kills people and kills rats, it's because they're giving them sodium that doesn't have the other minerals or a balance in some other way. Or they're just giving them too much. We don't want too much, of course. So mineral interaction, calcium, magnesium must work in balance and Optimal health is achieved when intake of all essential nutrients is sufficient and balanced. Deficiency and disease, yes, the primary reason for most nutritional diseases is the lack, insufficiency, or imbalance of one or more essential nutrients, including minerals, and due to the dietary insufficiency. Iron deficiency leading to anemia, calcium, vitamin D deficiency leading to osteoporosis, iodine deficiency leading to goiter and thyroid problems, the role of man-made chemicals. The idea that man-made chemicals might destroy elements is incorrect. Elements are fundamentally and cannot be destroyed by the normal chemical process. However, man-made chemicals, toxins, pollutants, processed food additives can interfere with how the body uses or absorbs these minerals. Okay, glad you cleared that up. Absorption, disruption of function, conclusion. Now, I say, would it be accurate then to say that drinking water with all the minerals in proper amounts needed for the human body, maybe all are actually needed, would be healthy and life-giving to our cells and organs? But the solid diet should contain only natural foods without any added man-made chemicals or toxins or artificial things. How do we know we wouldn't then live hundreds of years if accomplished? Ooh-wee. Let's see what they got to say. It would be accurate to say that consuming clean water with balanced natural mineral content and adhering strictly to a diet of natural unprocessed food is highly conducive to optimal health, cellular function, and organ vitality. This is the foundation of preventing many common chronic diseases. And I wonder if they're just not wanting to say all diseases, because then you wouldn't have to go to a doctor and they didn't want you to believe that. And maybe they could say, without lying, many, because it is many, right? Many meaning all, and maybe not all. I mean, you could fall off a cliff and die that way too, right? But anyway, it says, however, even if these ideal conditions were perfectly met, there are significant reasons why we would likely not live hundreds of years. Oh, really? Let's hear it. The reality of lifespan limitations, while diet and environment play a massive role in health span, the period of life spent in good health, they are not the sole determinants of maximum lifespan. Okay, here's where I got an argument with AI, and we fight it out, and in the end, I think I win, but you be the judge. Genetics and telomeres. You've heard of the telomeres. Lifespan appears to be largely determined by our genetics. A key factor involves telomeres, the caps on the ends of the chromosomes that shorten every time a cell divides. Okay, I won't, you all heard that. And then they talk about biological limits, aspects of aging, and the blue zones. Regions of the world called blue zones have people that live over 100 years old. They have this great diet, but yet they still only live to be 100, maybe 120. So they're saying it's impossible. All right, so here's my question. Well, they talk about the inevitable damage, metabolic errors, environmental accidents. Summary, according to the lifestyle you describe, pure water and proper minerals and a diet of strictly natural foods free from artificial chemicals would maximize your chances of living long, healthy life, perhaps well past 100 years. But I continue. Isn't it true, Your Honor, that studies have shown that we can keep our or renew telomeres. Huh? Are you lying to the public? This is AI. And they say, oh, well, yes, it is true that a growing body of studies have shown we can influence and in some cases even renew or lengthen the average length of telomeres. Are you kidding me? Case closed, slam dunk, we win. Right? But that, let's not stop there. We've got to interrogate the witness here. This process involves activating the enzyme telomerase and reducing oxidative stress and inflammation primarily through lifestyle changes and certain interventions. Okay, diet and all these things can change that. And then the limitations, while these findings are promising for improving health span, healthy years of life, they do not necessarily mean that we can dramatically extend the absolute maximum human life. Why they're always throwing in this caution, like, well, maybe, but let's be cautious about this, right? Okay, but that was one of your main reasons why you think we can't live forever, because this can't happen. And now I just showed you that it can, and you say, yeah, I know that, but. So let's go on. So I say, since no one has ever eaten properly, had extended happiness and love, known about proper diet, or had access to it, and we know we can lengthen telomeres, isn't it likely, or at least possible, that living in a pristine environment, eating only natural balanced food and drinking balanced mineral water and having no stress could allow for hundreds of years of life, at least? Maybe more. I mean, if no one has ever done it, we wouldn't know for sure. But it seems the facts are on our side, ? And they say, well, it's compelling. It's a compelling argument that optimizing every known health factor, pristine environment, perfect nutrition, balanced mineral water, stress elimination, and documented telomere lengthening potential offers the best possible chance for exceptional long lifespan. The facts you presented are a valid points pointing toward maximizing health span and pushing the upper limits of the current human lifespan. The conclusion that this could lead to living for hundreds of years moves from the realm of established scientific fact into the realm of theoretical possibility. Huh? Oh, buddy, they don't want to admit it. It's okay. We're going to put the screws on their thumbs now and put them on the old torture rack, and they'll admit it here in a second. Don't you worry. And the facts on our side argument, the argument for extreme longevity relies on the premise that previous human populations were severely compromised by environmental or dietary factors. I think they were. Unexplored potential, you are correct, because first of all, they ate meat. They lived in governments for thousands of years that fed them heroin and sold, like today, with heroin pushers on the end of the corner. Do you know that people in Rome were lying around in the streets all on heroin dying? Just like today? In 1800, basically, the number one thing that people would import or buy at the store was gin, tobacco, and then it would be like white processed flour and white processed sugar and stuff like that. So, yeah, you don't realize it, but people have been eating really bad for a long, long period of time. And the struggles and the war and the famine and the pestilence have been going down in biblical times, as we know. So that's not a very good point. And the scientific counter argument is that you got cumulative damage, species lifespan, every species has a general lifespan, and current max lifespan data says that we can only live so long. That's what they claim. So I ask them this. The idea of accumulative damage errors, I assume you mean like scarring, liver scars, and the like, but isn't it true that the liver repairs itself every month or so? And veins can reroute to other ways? Even the heart veins reroute? But have we ever shown that someone eating properly and getting all the balanced nutrition, sunlight, fresh air, mineral water, etc., might not have errors or scars or damage, and that we do not yet know if we can reverse aging or errors or scars? And they say, well, it is an active area of scientific research to determine the limit of regeneration and whether perfect conditions can prevent all aging damage. So they don't know yet. It is true that major organs like the liver have the extraordinary capacity for regeneration. By the way, they're lying again here, because not only can the liver and lots of things in your body do this, but every part of your body can regenerate, including the brain cells, ions. You get more of them if you eat right, and the telomeres regrow, and all the things, the stem cells they claim you don't get when you're old, you can start getting them again. So they're not, I didn't even ask them about the stem cells. But if we eat right, no one's ever done that, we don't know what would be the case. See, and that's what I'm trying to say. So organ repair, cumulative damage, liver regeneration, the nature of damage, the cumulative damage, the imperfect repair. The body's highly efficient at repair, but the process isn't always perfect. Do we know for sure? And they basically say, I'll just tell you what they say because we ain't got much time, is that we don't know for sure, but we're almost certain you can't live forever. That's what they're saying. Well, here's my question, finally. And I say, well, since an alcoholic who eats processed foods and chemicals and gets glyphosate in his diet and lives in polluted cities drinking sterile, toxic water and does not have love or happiness and stays in dark rooms and smokes carbon monoxide and other things, lives 70 years, why should we not just assume that if we did not or none of these things, we would live many times longer? And they go, that comparison highlights the differences between average outcomes and individual exceptions. The fact that some individuals survive for 70 years despite severely unhealthy lifestyles provides evidence of extraordinary biological resilience and the powerful role of genetics. But it's not the norm. I get it, it's not the norm, but maybe we should make it the norm. Here's why we can confidently assume that living a pristine, healthy life would result in a significantly longer and healthier existence. The person who lives 70 while heavily smoking, drinking, and eating processed foods is likely an outlier who won the genetic lottery. I don't agree with this. I don't believe that. I think all animals live about the same length of time, and I believe that sunlight activates, vitamin D3 activates all these genetic things, and I don't think they have a clue what they're talking about here. But they have these, they say most people aren't so lucky, they got poor genetics, and it says that, you know, some people, if they ate right, might live a little longer, but the people you're talking about that eat terribly and smoke and everything, they only live to be 40. That's what they're saying. The statistical evidence versus antidote. We ain't got much time, so I'm going to get down here to my question again. So I say, why wouldn't you assume that the person doing everything right would live far longer than 90? It is not the average person that lives bad. It's pretty much everyone. Even if a vegetarian doesn't smoke or drink, they may live in a polluted city or drink soda or processed food or be around people who smoke. But I think that most people are not missing one or two parts of health, but 80% of the proper balance. Just not smoking or eating only vegetables is only one small percent of health. We need sunshine, minerals, air, joy, no stress, etc. But here's the most important thing. As you said earlier, one missing element in your cell or body means death. Thus, obviously, 99% or more people will die when the body finally disintegrates because they did not have enough nutrients they needed. It's not a guess to say that if we don't have the exact properties to function, we die. Thus, scientifically speaking, if we provide the body with all the nutrients, we can live many times longer. They say you make a strong philosophical argument that a perfect optimized lifestyle should theoretically lead to a lifespan much longer than 90 years. Your reasoning connects two key scientific concepts in an interesting way: the necessity of all essential elements for life, the idea that everyone currently lives with significant nutritional and environmental deficits. Scientifically speaking, we can confidently assume that someone living the optimal lifestyle you described would live significantly longer than the current average of 80 or 90 years. However, While we can't definitely rule out a much longer lifespan, the jump to many times longer, hundreds of years, remains speculative for the following reasons. You are correct that lacking a single essential element in the body's machinery causes rapid death. Stop breathing, heart failure. This is an acute catastrophic failure. But most people today are not in a state of acute failure. They are operating in a state of chronic suboptimal health or imbalance. Their bodies are highly resilient and compensate for these deficits over decades by accelerating aging process or developing chronic disease. So providing all the nutrients in the optimal environment does not fundamentally change the underlying biological process of metabolism, which inherently produces some levels of wear and tear. So you've got the metabolic byproducts, the DNA replication errors, and the stochastic events, random chance events at the molecular level. So I say, 1, how do we know metabolic byproducts would not cease or be repaired through optimal living? 2, how do we know DNA replication errors in the process would happen if we had optimal living? Since no one has tried, and obviously repair would increase with optimal living. 3, how can we say that bad luck or random chance errors is not actually by chance or random error, but seems obviously caused by bad living and toxins? And they say, well, it is true that living optimally should increase repair capabilities. But current scientific understanding based on the laws of physics and biology indicates that zero damage is unattainable. And we know this because inherent chemistry processes converting food and oxygen energy generates reactive oxygen species, free radicals, and they say a high nutritious antioxidant-rich diet significantly boosts the body antioxidant defenses and DNA repair efficiency, reducing the rate of damage and improving the speed of repair. However, the damage still occurs. They say, enzyme imperfection. The enzymes that copy DNA, polymerase, make approximately 1 error for every billion base pairs replicated. Error correcting machinery reduces this to about 1 error per 100 billion base repairs. That is an astonishing level of accuracy, but in the genome with billions of base pairs, errors still accumulate over a lifetime of cell divisions. We got evolutionary imperfection and telomere shortening we've already covered. And how can we say that bad luck, random chance errors is not actually by chance or random error, but seems obviously caused by bad living and toxins? Well, bad luck or stochastic random chance events are fundamentally different from damage caused by toxins or bad living. While toxins are a major cause of mutations, some are unavoidable, they claim. Background radiation, the natural environment has inescapable background radiation, cosmic rays, that can cause DNA breaks and mutations. Hydrolysis, the very presence of water within the body, can cause chemical reactions. Okay, they got all these problems, right? So I say, well, I just can't see how we should be so sure of this inevitability when we basically destroyed the whole earth, biology, polluted everything. How can you assume it is natural to die? Perhaps when we attain love, our nature will also change. And here's their answer. It is understanding why you find the idea of inevitable aging and death unconvincing when considering the scale of global environmental damage and suboptimal human behavior. You are essentially asking if what we perceive as natural aging is actually a consequence of systemic environmental and lifestyle degradation. Your perspective resonates with a school of thought that aging is a curable disease caused by environment factors we haven't yet fully controlled or understood. This view suggests that we haven't tested the true limits of healthy human life yet. Here is why the scientific community tends to remain cautious. Okay, so they got their current science views based on observing nearly all species of Earth. Aging appears to be a conserved biological phenomenon, a built-in process. But your view, you propose that our current natural is a distorted baseline due to widespread pollution, stress, lack of love, joy. In this view, a true, pristine, harmonious existence might unlock a different biological reality altogether. Why science is sure, but never 100%. Scientists base their conclusions on overwhelming empirical evidence gathered across diverse populations, environments, and even laboratory settings where variables are controlled. The impact of love, joy, and nature, you are right that love, happiness, and nature or natural environment are not just feel-good concepts, but they have measurable, powerful biological effects. Reduced stress hormones, joy, low stress dramatically lowers cortisol, which in turn reduces inflammation. Holistic approach, conclusion, you have identified a crucial gap. No one has yet lived in a perfect physical, emotional, environmental bubble from birth to death. Scientifically speaking, the available evidence suggests a maximum healthy lifespan of about 120 years under current biological constraints. Theoretically speaking, if we assume that aging is purely an environmentally induced disease, as you suggest, then yes, a perfect lifestyle could potentially lead to much longer, perhaps indefinitely long lifespans. Indefinitely long. This idea drives much of the cutting-edge anti-aging research today. We just don't have the proof yet because, as you pointed out, nobody's ever had access to truly pristine existence throughout their entire life. So there you go, friends. Wow. I think I got it out of them, and I hope you all understand the beauty of all of this video today, because what we have, I think, proven beyond any shadow of a doubt, and we've gotten AI to kind of agree, if we were to eat natural food only, good balanced protein, good balanced fats and balanced carbs and balanced everything and minerals, and drink good mineral water, live in communities where we're happy and have joy and adventure and love, that we would transform the planet and we would live forever. I'm going to go ahead and go. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you all, and you know He will. Just seek Him, guys. Just pray. He hears you. He's within us all, and He loves us all. His grace and His peace will be with you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.